Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters and friends, those who are present with us today, I've been asked to come and talk to you guys about problems that you as a Muslim student may face, may come across going to university in a society and environment like the one in which we are living currently. So initially, the kind of things that were brought to my attention was, speak about things like free mixing and haram relationships and this, that, and the other, and, other problems and vices and things that the religion considers to be immoral. I was asked to discuss and talk about these issues. But like in our religion, we have two types of diseases that can enter a person's heart. And both of those diseases are serious. They're destructive towards a person's spirituality. But like one of them is more of a threat and a danger, and more befitting that we deal with it. And that's the disease of doubts. Doubts that could enter and creep up inside of a person's heart that could cause them to now become detached or move away from their creed. Creed in Arabic, in terms of our religion, you guys would be familiar with the term aqidah. Aqidah is creed, our belief. So the diseases of the heart, which are two, there's doubts, and these commonly affect a person's creed. A person might begin to doubt the authenticity of our textual evidences. They might begin to doubt, as some people do, Assalamu alaikum, some people do, the existence of our Creator. They might begin to doubt whether certain rulings and rules of Islam are correct or just. These are all doubts that would enter a person's heart, and they can actually cause them to become so destroyed in their creed that creed is no longer an Islamic creed, and a person can actually move away from Islam now. The other disease of the heart is the disease of desires. Things that enter into a person's heart because of the desires that they have. Desires could make you steal, make you rob, make you insult another person, make you mock, ridicule, make you take someone's rights, violate someone's honor, and the sins such as free mixing and stealing and backbiting and all of that, it falls under that category right there. But I don't want to talk about those today. Of course, we already know what's halal and what's haram. We know what's right and what's wrong. We know what we're not supposed to do and what we're supposed to do. We can try and make the arguments in our head, to try and justify certain bad things. But at the end of the day, you know what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. And even though it's beneficial to talk about that and reinforce that, I don't want to go into that today. Because I believe you as university students in the 21st century, in this specific circumstance in which we're living in today, you have greater problems to worry about. And that is certain things that are coming your way, that are challenging the basic tenets of Islam. And they're very prevalent in our university campuses. So what I'm going to go through, inshallah ta'ala, very quickly, because I can't do justice to each and every single one of them. The point here is not to go into an extensive discussion on each of these. We can discuss it a bit more in the Q&A, but I just want to mention a few points just to show you from the foundation why each one of these things are very shaky and why they should pose no real threat to a Muslim in case anyone has already come in contact with these things. The first of them is atheism. The second, inshallah ta'ala, thing that we're going to go through is we're going through scientism and naturalism. You may not be familiar with these terms, but what these terms carry, these terms, what they mean, you probably have come in touch and contact with these ideologies, but maybe not with the names that I'm mentioning them to you, because these are the things that they refer to with in the academic circles. Then we're going to go through, inshallah ta'ala, liberalism and individualism, because they're basically one and the same thing. We're going to then talk about secularism. Then finally, we're going to touch on feminism, inshallah ta'ala, and then we're going to conclude. So without any further ado, let's put atheism under the microscope. Atheism, brothers and sisters and friends, does not actually pose a serious threat to Islam. And a person who knows the religion and who knows the basics of even rationale would not be fazed by atheism. But the reality of the matter is that we sometimes forget the playing field. And we forget the one who's making the claim and the one who's supposed to be responding to that claim. Atheism is something that in our religion, and I know I'm talking to you guys as Muslims right now, in our religion is something that really and truly we don't actually believe it actually really exists in its actual complete sense. We don't believe that there is a such thing as an atheist on the face of this planet. And I'll tell you why. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned to us that each and every single human being is born upon what you call the fitrah, which is the natural disposition. This natural disposition is a natural state that each person is born into. This state already has a knowledge and an understanding that there is a creator. It already has an understanding that there are certain things that are right and certain things that are wrong. And even science and psychology backs this up. For example, there was a study that was done over a decade ago where they wanted to look at what happens the first time a person lies. And they notice a person who's not a habitual liar, the first time that person begins to lie, their heart starts to beat fast. Their palms become sweaty. Their throat becomes a bit croaky. And they said, hold up, there are physiological changes that are taking place on this person's body at the time that he's lying. All of this is taking place, and we don't know why. And they concluded that the only conclusion that they have right now that they can postulate is that the human being, it doesn't have the capacity. The human being was made, it's designed in a way, whether you're an atheist and you believe that the human being was designed through a natural process, which they call evolution, or whether you are a person who is a person of faith who believes that you are designed and created by a Lord, by a God, by a creator of the heavens and the earth, irrespective, they conclude that the human being wasn't designed to lie. The human being doesn't have the hard wiring that actually allows and facilitates lying. And that's why the body is having such a adverse reaction the first time the person lies. So who told the person it's wrong to lie? The child knows it's wrong to lie from the beginning. He never learnt this from society. It was innate, it was brought in him. The fitrah is what's guiding him to this. But what's a greater thing that the fitrah, the natural disposition, what it guides you to, is the knowledge that there is a creator that exists, that created you. And you ought to submit to him. And the Prophet ﷺ said this. He said, no one is born except that they're born upon this state. And then it's their parents later that will turn them into a Christian, that will lead them into Judaism, that will lead them into being a fire worshipper or whatever else it is that they might go towards. It's their parents that will teach them these things, and the society will take them in that direction. So from an Islamic perspective, we believe everyone's born a Muslim. Even Fir'aun, we all know Fir'aun, right? The Pharaoh of Moses. He made a claim. What did he say? He said, Ana Rabbukum al-A'la. He said, I am the Lord Most High. So if atheist means the belief that there is no God, Fir'aun is the biggest atheist because he is disbelieving in God to such an extent where he's saying, I am God. He disbelieved in there being a creator in the heavens and the earth. But even when he disbelieved, Allah told us in the Quran, and we believe Allah is trustworthy, and we believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to lie to us, a'udhu billah. Allah protects us from that, we seek refuge in Allah from that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did he say? He said, Fir'aun, he said this, وَاسْتَيْقَنَتْنَا أَنفُسَهُمْ ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًّا. But inside of his heart, he believed. He actually believed that Allah existed, but because of arrogance, he couldn't admit it. He was too arrogant. He wanted to be the guy in charge that everyone listens to, that everyone looks up to. Even another verse, Moses, Allah quotes to us what Moses said. He said, قَدْ عَلِمْتَ. Fir'aun, you know what? That what I'm bringing to you is from the Lord of the heavens and the earth. So Musa, who is trustworthy, a messenger of Allah, Moses is telling us that Fir'aun, he believed. He didn't disbelieve in Allah. Even though he said, I am the Lord Most High, he didn't really believe it in his heart. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who Allah said, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. Allah said, we created the human being and we know what the human being whispers to himself. We're closer to him than his own jugular vein in terms of the knowledge that Allah has of you. So Allah says, Allah has the knowledge that he even knows what your thoughts are, what you whisper inside. And that Allah who has that knowledge is telling us Fir'aun, he did believe in Allah. So if Fir'aun believed in Allah, and he really did, and there's no atheists on the face of this planet. Even, it's very comical, Richard Dawkins, who seems to be the pioneer of atheism in this modern day and age, right? He's the one who hands the flag and the banner of, he holds the flag and the banner of atheism. He was on a show, one time, a radio show, BBC One, or BBC Extra, whatever the show is called, and he was asked to quote the name of Charles Darwin's book, which is The Origin of Species, right? But many people don't know that's not actually the full name of the book. The name is actually very long. It's over 10 words long. So then when he said The Origin of Species, the guy who was interviewing him on the radio show, he said to him, no, what's the full name of the book? Do you even know the full name of the book? And then he started to mention the full name of the book, but then halfway through he forgot. And as he forgot, he was like, oh God. And the guy was like, whoa, I thought you don't believe in God. Where's this coming from? And it's like they say, there's no such thing, this is what they say, I'm not saying, there's no such thing as an atheist on a plane when a turbulence starts to kick in. As soon as the plane dips, oh God. It always comes. Sometimes you speak to them and they'll look up. What are you looking up at? The fitrah. It's like an internal GPS system that's guiding you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not just that. I gave you textual proofs and evidences because the Quran and the Sunnah is my yardstick for truth. I gave you textual evidences primarily, and this is what really we consider to be evidence, that backs up and shows to us that atheism is not actually something that really exists. Okay? It's not something that really exists. Rather, I can also now back up that with scientific proofs. And I don't like to jump to science first and foremost because science is not the holy grail of truth, as we're going to find out in a second. Science actually, it does a good job as long as you allow it to do what it needs to do. But when you take science outside of its lane, then science now starts to have some limitations and restrictions. So we're not going to mention science as the first thing, but we'll mention it as a secondary point to just back it up. Because I know there might be some who are present who might not be Muslim or whatever have you, and they might not be convinced by the textual proofs, but then hopefully this should back it up as well. There is a researcher called Justin L. Barrett, who's an American, and he did this research in the University of Cambridge. And he wrote a book, it's called Why People Believe in God, and I recommend those of you who want to look into this further to go and look into that book. And they've done a study, they actually observed children over a period of time, and they wanted to see these children, do they have an innate understanding that there is a God, a deity that reigns supreme, that governs over them? And they actually concluded that these children actually believe in an all-knowing, all-seeing, all-hearing being above them before they were even told. Such that they said, if you were to take kids, and he mentioned obviously this will be immoral to do, so there's no way he can actually carry out this study, which I'm about to mention now. But he said if it was possible, he said you would find that my conclusion is correct. And what was the study that he would like to have done? To take children who were born, and immediately when they're born, before they're influenced by society, put them on an island where they would be literally living alone, without any external influences. He said those kids who have no stimulus outside of that island and no extra information being fed to them, they would all automatically, organically, innately grow up understanding that there is a creator of the heavens and the earth. And he concluded this from the massive study that he had done. And this study has been worked on year after year, and many other studies have opened up since then. And you guys can look it up, inshallah ta'ala, in your own time. So then now the question comes to mind, if atheism doesn't really exist, then how does one deal with atheists? Well, the Prophet ﷺ said, البينة على المدعي واليمين على من أنكر. Now, anytime there is a conflict, there's a debate, there is a person making a claim. Even in the courts, there's a person making a claim, right? The Crown prosecuting services, they're making a claim. This person's a criminal. Then you have a defendant, right? Now, we have a rule. By the way, this rule, people think it came from liberal society. It didn't. It actually was inspired by Islamic law. And we'll talk about it in the Q&A if you want, inshallah. If you want me to go into more information, we can do that. But this actually came from Islamic law, which was the presumption of innocence. i.e., you're innocent until proven guilty. They never had that before Islam. Before Islam, if someone made a claim and said, hey, you're a criminal, do you know what they would do? They would have to duel. The guy who comes out alive, he wins. If I came out and said, bruv, you're a thief. Okay, me and you, we have to duel now. That was a legal system right here in Europe. France and United Kingdom and so on and so forth. But like Islam had a concept of the presumption of innocence, and it came from this hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-bayyinatu al-mudda'i wal-yamin ala man ankar. That the burden of proof, the Prophet said, is upon the one who's making a claim. You're making a claim that you're a criminal. Okay, now upon you is the burden of proof to clarify and to verify that claim. And upon me, if I'm the one who the claim is being made against, I'm innocent until proven guilty. For me, I'm innocent until proven guilty. I don't have to say anything. You're the one who has to bring the evidence. So now if we apply the standard to atheism, atheism goes against the norm. It goes against the standard. It goes against the status quo, okay? All people, they believe in a higher being. Scientific research backs it up. Textual evidences mentions this. So now, you as a person who's a believer, person of faith, if an atheist now comes to you and opens a discussion, the burden of proof is not upon you to prove that God exists or that a creator exists. Rather, the burden of proof is upon them to disprove it to you. And what's interesting is that atheists will always tell you, when you flip this on them, they'll always say, and this is a rational, logical fact, they will never be able to disprove the existence of a creator. How could they? How can they have to go outside of the universe, back in time, watch everything happen and say, no, we saw the Big Bang happen through complete natural processes and there was no supreme being that was actually orchestrating this process at the time it happened. They'll never be able to say that to you. Does that make sense? So then, now we're at a point where, okay, how does the discussion go any further now? How does it go further? Because you as an atheist, if you come to me and you tell me, oh, prove God exists, I'm going to say, brother, the burden of proof is not on me. Sociologically, psychologically, scientifically, textually, historically, humans have always believed that a higher being exists. Now, you want to be the first to open this door, the burden of proof is on you, not me. So then now, they'll respond and say, well, I can't open that. There's no way I'll be able to disprove. But he still doesn't want to believe. So now you want to take the discussion a bit further. How do you progress this discussion? Now you take a Quranic perspective. You take a Quranic approach. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells you where to start. Allah tells you the starting point. And this is how I engage in my discourse and my dialogue with atheists. And I find it to be hugely beneficial. Because it's the correct way. It's the textual way. It's the Islamic way, the Quranic way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when dealing with the people of Quraysh, the people of Mecca, the disbelievers to whom the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent, in Surah Ibrahim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says to them, Afillahi shak. Is there any doubt with regards to Allah? There's no doubt. There's no doubt. This discussion about Allah being a creator, being a provider, being a sustainer, being a Lord, this discussion, it doesn't exist. It's a non-discussion. No one ever had it. Even the people to whom the Prophet was sent to, they never disbelieved in Allah. Their problem was that they worshipped someone else besides Him. They worshipped other gods besides Him. Some of them worshipped stones, some of them worshipped idols, some worshipped angels, some worshipped the jinn, some worshipped men in their graves. They had different things that they worshipped, but they also worshipped Allah. They never disbelieved in Allah. So this is the point where Allah, He starts with them. He said, Afillahi shakkun, is there any doubt with regards to Allah? There's no doubt. There's no doubt. So from that point onwards, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then what did He do? He gave them reasons to worship Him alone. He said, if you agree and you are at a point with me now where you believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He exists and He created you, then from that point onwards, the only thing that's needed is to prove to you why you should worship Him. Because you don't actually disbelieve He exists. What you're trying to do is you're trying to ignore Him. That's why I find, and wallahi, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, because I feel a lot of the times when a person is not trained in the sciences and they're not trained in how to have discussion and dialogue, they kind of get lost in the source. Like an atheist might come and throw a couple of things at you, and because you're not very accustomed to dealing with these things, you kind of end up falling into the way that they're guiding the discussion. But when you actually bring it down and you speak to an atheist, you actually bring it down and say, what are you claiming? Are you claiming that this universe existed without cause? They will always, 99.9% of the time, they will always affirm that there had to have been something there. There had to be something there. If you bring it down, because discussion and dialogue has to be systematic. You can't just throw things and hurl things left, right, center. When you bring it down to really what the central point is, when you bring it down, what you're claiming is, what you're claiming is that the universe came into existence from nothing. It's better that you believe when you see a magician on TV pulling out a rabbit out of a hat, that he actually did that. Because at least there's a hat for the rabbit to pull for the magician to pull the rabbit out of. But here, the earth came out and there was no hat. Do you see? So what you're saying is more preposterous, what you're claiming is more preposterous than something like that. And not that I'm advocating you watch magicians on TV. The point that I'm making is that claim is absurd. And no rational, sane-minded person is willing to accept that. Even when they say the universe came from nothing, they actually have to change the definition of what nothing means. They say, not actually, Professor Lawrence Krauss in his book, A Universe from Nothing, he actually said, nothing isn't nothing anymore. Nothing has a weight. Nothing can be measured. I don't know which English classes you went to, my G. We studied, nothing meant the absence of something. Nothing don't have a weight. Does that make sense? So they have to even manipulate and play with the actual definition of the actual word. Does that make sense? So when you bring it down, they agree. They will agree with you, yeah, that a Lord, that something exists. So now all I need to do is I need to just make you understand that being, that thing that you've affirmed and you agree with me that exists, that your fitrah is waking up to you, that your disposition is kicking in and it's affirming, that you just need to understand who that thing is. And when you get to know what that thing is, what will happen is you will now begin to understand why you should worship that being, and you will start to worship that being. And I'll just mention to you one verse. One verse. Maybe I'll mention a couple actually, but because of time, I'm only committing to one right now, and I'll see how long it takes. If not, we'll jump to the next point. But one verse in the chapter of divorce, Surah Al-Talaq, towards the end of the Quran, in the 28th juz of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions a verse He mentions a verse at the end of the very chapter. Allah said, Allah is the one. Pay attention. Look how powerful this verse is. I'm talking to an atheist right now. The atheist I'm talking to. He's agreed with me that there is something, there has to be something. But why do you say it's God? They always say, why do you leave? Okay, no problem. Let's take it step by step. Look what Allah said in the Quran. He said, I don't believe in the Quran. I said, don't worry, the Quran doesn't expect you to believe in it right now. The Quran, it transcends you. Okay? It has truth that's objectively measurable for all mankind. Those who believe and those who even don't believe. So you don't have to be a believer for me to present you the Quranic argument right now. Take it, weigh up against your own cognitive processes and see if it works. Because if you have a sound rational mind, you won't have an issue with it. So what did Allah say? Now look how powerful the verse is. Allah said, Allah is the one who created the 7 heavens. And He created the earths. And He set His command to run between them. He initiated His command. Yeah? Why? 2 reasons Allah said. Number 1, so that you can know that He has power over all things. So that you can know that He is knowledgeable of everything. Now Allah made a claim in this verse. Allah said that when you look at the sky, the heavens, you have to understand, heavens doesn't mean paradise. I don't know why some people have this confusion. Heaven means paradise. The word in Arabic for paradise is Jannah. The word for heavens in the Quran is Sama. Sama is anything above you, meaning the universe, the skies, the stars. The Arabs, linguistically, classically, would refer to where the moon is, where the sun is, where the stars are, where the planets are. They would refer to that as the heaven, the first heaven. So this universe that we see is the first heaven. Does that make sense? So Allah said, I created these heavens. This heaven that you see, I created this. And the earth that you see, I created this. And I initiated my command. And my command ran between the heavens and the earth. Meaning the processes that we see, everything that's operating, that Allah set in motion for us. All of this, if you reflect on it, Allah is saying, if you ponder on the heavens and the earth, Allah said, you will come to know 2 things about me. Number 1, you'll come to know I have power. You'll come to know I have ability. And number 2, you will come to know that I am knowledgeable. I have intelligence. Okay, so let's take a step back now. Allah made a claim. He said, if I ponder upon the heavens and the earth, I will now come to deduce that the one who caused the heavens, remember we agreed there's a cause, right? We agreed a second ago there is a cause for all of this. No problem. We're trying to work out if we can actually affirm any characteristics and attributes towards this cause. Allah is saying you can ponder upon the effect and you'll come to know about the cause. So we think, okay, let's observe the universe. Now this is where science comes in pretty handy. By the way, Islam's not against science. Classically speaking, if you look at it, Islam actually encouraged the scientific process, the scientific method. The current scientific method that we have was actually initiated and established, its foundational process by a scientific scholar called Ibn Haytham from the medieval times. And Francis Bacon and the likes of them who came after, they were influenced by his method and they carried it on. So the foundation is that which we have as a scientific process today, it came from the Muslims because Allah told us to go and observe the universe. And science is what? Is a study of the natural world and its processes and all the components that cause it to function the way that it functions. That's exactly what science is. And Allah is telling you, go and actually do science. Go look at the sky. Get involved in some cosmology. Go look at the earth. Some biology, chemistry. Do your thing. And when you do that, what happens? You come to know, you know what? This world is designed. So you come to know that the way that this earth, this universe is, it cannot be without design. It cannot be without design. All of the leading atheists will even mention this to you. Richard Dawkins got a book called The God Delusion. It's shocking. It's funny. It blew my mind when I read it. I had to stop reading the book and say, this is not normal. Like this person writing this. Sometimes I'm not gonna lie. Like it doesn't make sense. He's mentioned a point. Then he goes on to another point, not realizing that he just refuted himself a second ago. Now he actually goes on to say that if you look at this world, it definitely appears that it has design. So what's your problem here? Why am I having this argument? If you affirm that it has design, then it has to be a designer, right? And there's no way that you can look at the world and the way that everything's been positioned, the way that everything's been made, except that it has to have design. I'll give you an example. Look, I'll give you an example. Are there laws of physics that govern this universe. They are, right? Now, those laws, can they exist? They create order, right? They create order. So now question, can order come out of chaos? No. Impossible. The same way something cannot come out of nothing, order cannot be birthed from chaos. Because the very foundation and the essence of chaos is the absence of order. So how can it bring about order? Does that make sense? So then there has to be an order giver. Does that make sense? Is the universe in motion? Pay attention. Is the universe in motion? It's in motion, right? The stars, they orbit on their own axes. Some stars are orbiting in their own orbits. You've got planets that orbit the sun. You've got moons that orbit the planets. There's motion everywhere you look, right? Okay, question. Can something move? Can something, which is an inanimate object, that doesn't have the ability to move in and within itself, like a living organism? Because obviously the claim, even atheists won't deny, is that before life existed, there was no living organisms, right? It was all just matter. So can just a dead material thing, can it move on its own? No, it needs something to set it in motion, right? So for example, if I take this cup and I place it here, and no one touches this cup for 1 billion years, will it ever move? 1 billion years will go by, this cup will never move. Unless someone sets it in motion. So the same way with this universe. This universe is in amazing motion. The motion that's taking place in this universe right now is mind-blowing. But who set that motion in place? Unless someone came and moved the universe, click the pause, the start button, flick the domino, set things into play, nothing would have moved. So the fact that the universe is in motion, is a proof that there was one who set it into motion. So the same way, when you see design in the universe, you know that there was a designer, because design can't come without a designer. When you see order can't come out of chaos. It has to come from an order giver, a law giver. Motion can't come in and within itself. It has to come from a place where there is movement. A cause has to move it, and by the way, that cause has to be external to it. Same way, if I got dominoes that are all lined up, the domino's not going to knock itself over, right? Something that has to be outside of the pack of dominoes has to initiate the process. All of these things show that there had to be a designer, there had to be a mover, there had to be a lawgiver, and all of that indicates intelligence. All of that directs you towards there being proof of intelligence in this universe. Okay, cool. So that's the first part of the verse. The second claim that the verse made was that pondering over the universe will allow you to come to the conclusion that there is a creator, that the cause of the universe actually has power, has ability. I don't need to go into this too much. I mean, if you just think about it, if I take one atom, what happens? What happens if you split an atom? What happens if you split an atom? There is a massive release of energy, right? And that's why they use this stuff for even warfare. So you have an atom, by the way, just as a side point, because I know people love to take things out of context. The Islamic position on the atomic bomb, on nuclear weapons, is that it's haram, it's not permissible. Because even if you look from the context of warfare, if there is warfare, you're not even allowed to harm a tree, let alone an innocent person who's a non-combatant. But a nuclear bomb, it will definitely cause chaos, and it will take the lives of people that are innocent, that are not involved, to the point where it destroys the infrastructure, it destroys land, it destroys the inhabitants of even animals. So the Islamic position on nuclear warfare is that it's not permissible. In case someone wanted to, take me out of context, just clarifying. So coming back to the point, if you take an atom and you split it, there's a massive release of energy. That's in one atom. Look at the power that Allah placed in one atom. Now, can energy come from nothing? It has to be placed by so can a thing or a being that has potential of no energy, that doesn't have any potential of energy, can it place energy? Can it place strength? Can it place these things inside the universe? Impossible. It had to have come from a source that had the ability to place that there in the first place, right? It had to come from a source that could place that in the first place. That's one atom. Now imagine all the atoms in the universe. The power that Allah placed in one atom. And that could not have come except from one who is powerful. Brothers and sisters, I'm not even being exhaustive into this discussion. I'm just touching on it just very, very briefly. Brothers, sisters and friends, sorry. And I'm not even trying to give you too many examples, just a few here and there. Just to show you that what Allah said in the verse is true. If you look at the universe, you ponder on it, you'll know that the creator, you'll know that the cause, had intelligence, and you know that the cause has ability. Now, why is it that Allah mentioned these two things? Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, who is a genius, a polymath, unheard of in his time. Even today, to find a mind the likes of his, mothers haven't given birth to minds like that since him. He said something powerful. He said, why did Allah mention these two characteristics? The characteristic of knowledge and the characteristic of ability, power. He said, because if your discussion with the atheist is that there is a cause of the universe, which they're not going to deny, then what the atheist is running away from is that this cause is Allah, that this cause is a Lord, that this cause actually is a creator, in other words. Because the Lord of you is the one who creates you, right? I create something, I am the Lord of that thing now. I make a house, I am the Lord of the house, I own the house. Lord means the one who owns, the one who holds authority over. So if Allah created you, then He's your Lord. Which means now, you have to do what He says. If He tells you worship Him, you have to worship Him, right? If He tells you do this, do this. If He tells you don't do that, don't do that. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what they have an issue with is the fact that He's the creator. They're running away from that characteristic. So Ibn Taymiyyah said, a creator has two characteristics. In order for you to convince them that Allah is indeed a creator, you have to prove to them two things. Number one, you prove to them that this cause that we're agreeing upon, it has knowledge to create. And number two, it has the ability to create. With the knowledge of how to create and the ability to create, you now are a creator. Do I have the ability to make a house? Yeah, I do. You know, I got a toolkit at home, I got hands, I can get to work, I can make a house. Do I have the knowledge of how to do that though? So I'm not a creator. Now imagine I have the knowledge, but I'm disabled, as in I don't actually have hands that I can work and use, or I'm injured for a period of time, and for that time I can't. For that time, am I a creator? No, I've got the blueprint in my head, but I don't have the ability. I'm not the creator of the house. Does that make sense? But when you can combine and marry these two characteristics, creator and ability, when you combine them, now you have, knowledge and ability, you now have a creator. And he said, that's why Allah, He told them, direct your attention towards the heavens and the earth. You'll come to know that I have knowledge and I have power. If so, then I'm your creator. If the one who created the heavens and earth has knowledge and He has ability, then that means He's the creator. And that's a very systematic argument that I think a person with a sound, rational mind won't have too much of an issue with. What do you guys think? Are we on the same page so far? Anyone want me to rewind? I hope it didn't go over anyone's head. Is it gone over anyone's head? We're on the same page? All good? Lovely. So now that the person, he's got to understand these characteristics of Allah, now I have to just explain to him that the one who created you, the one who provided you with what you have, He deserves to be worshipped. He deserves to be worshipped. He deserves to be worshipped, number one, because of who He is. He's great. He's great. Look at what He created. We as human beings, we have an innate feature that's placed inside of us, where we love to praise greatness. Have you ever, seen someone score like a sick goal, and you don't even support that team? You're like, oh, that was... Have you been in that situation? You don't even support that team. But when you see greatness, what do? You applaud it, right? If you see kids on sports day, it might not even be your younger brother or your child or whatever have you, but he wins the race, you're like, wow, this kid, you're like, whoa, that kid, mashallah. You applaud greatness, even if that greatness has, the greatness that person has got nothing to do with you. That person who's great has not done anything to you, for you. But like, what about the greatness of Allah? Bro, He set the whole world in motion. The more you dive into the natural sciences, the more you'll be shocked and amazed at how great and magnificent this creator is. So that just creates a feeling of wow. This creator really is great. So because of His greatness, He deserves to be worshipped. Number two, He deserves to be worshipped because of that which he did to you, so that you can be grateful to him. He created you and brought you into existence when you never existed. He gave you eyes with which you see, hands with which you operate, feet with which you walk. If I ask you right now, how much are you going to sell me your eye for? I promise you won't put a price on it. Even if I offered you £1 million, I said, give me £1 million for your head. Give me £1 million for your heart. £1 billion for your heart, for your lungs. You will never give it. Why? Because you can't live anymore, right? You can't operate without your brain, your heart. You can't operate without these things. So these things too are worth more than billions, trillions they're worth more than. So my question to you is, how much did you pay for them? How much did you pay for your organs? Nothing. Sisters, did anyone buy their heart? Did anyone? No? But it was given to you what? For free. The least that you should be is what? Grateful. And we would understand if there was a parent who raised a child and brought this child up, worked their backsides off to put them through, put clothes on their back, give them a house, keep them in a safe environment, pay for them, help them go to university, etc., etc., etc. But when this kid grows up now, gets a job, turns his back on his mum. What does he do? He walks up to some random lady and starts calling her mum. Every time her mum calls, he says, Mum, I don't even believe in you. Get out of it. But she's like, I did this for you, I did that for you, I did this, I did all this for you. What would you say about that person? How would you describe him? Sisters, how would you describe that human being? Just give me some adjectives.
Bad.
Pardon? Ungrateful. What else? Evil. Where else?
Corrupt.
Pardon? Corrupt. What else? Can we have hands up? They don't put hands up in uni anymore? Does that happen? Is it like a shout out kind of thing nowadays? It's been a long time. Anyone else? Selfish. These are all negative characteristics. No one would turn around and say that guy's righteous. But what if that guy, he gives money in charity?
It's not worth it.
Say that again?
It's not worth it.
I'm not saying it's not worth it, but I'm saying what if that guy gives money in charity? You say, bro, you're trying to help people you don't know. The one who is most deserving of goodness and kindness to you, you turn your back on that person. So how you jump into a person, you're giving, it's good, you're giving charity, you're donating to people in a different part of the world who might be in need. But your mum's here. She's more deserving of you being kind and affectionate and good to her because of what she's done to you. Does that make sense? So you look at everything else, but every day his mum tries to knock for him, he just spits in her face, sends her back on her way. He says this person is vile, evil. Does that make sense? Regardless of how much apparent good they might be doing in their life. So then now, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلِ الْأَعْلَى, there's greater reasoning, not example, I'm not comparing the mum to Allah, but there's greater reasoning in that for you to apply that to Allah. Allah done more for you than your mum. Allah done more for you than your mum. He gave you more. And for you to turn your back on Him, brothers, sisters, friends, for you to turn your back on Him is the greatest form of selfishness. It's the greatest form of evil. It's the greatest form of corruption. Whether you abandon Him in totality or you worship Him and you worship someone else besides Him, whether it be a prophet, an angel, or whatever else it might be. The essence and the message of Islam is that you worship Allah alone. You worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. You worship no one else besides Him. He created you alone. He deserves to be worshipped alone. Don't worship your desires. Some of us take ourselves as God. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَى. Allah said, have you seen the one who took his own desires as a God? He worships himself. She worships herself. She does whatever she wants. We live in a society where the whole world, it functions the Western world, it functions on the ethos and the foundations and the philosophies of liberalism. What does liberalism mean? To understand liberalism, you need to understand individualism. What's individualism? Individualism is the view that the individual self, the person, is greater than society. Society can't hold this one person back if he wants to progress. And this is where the concept of some good things come out of this, which is things like presumption of innocence, which are actually introduced from the Islamic narrative, and so on and so forth. But some terrible things come out of this as well. Because what if this person now, he wants to go drinking? What if he wants to go drinking every weekend? Individually, what's wrong? Why are you stopping him? Let him do what he wants, to each their own. But in our religion, we place society above the individual. Because one or two people might, for their own selfish reasons, do what they want to do, run riot, and it causes everyone else an expense. Do you guys know how much the NHS spends every year on medical illnesses and medical things related to alcohol abuse? Can anyone take a guess how much money they spend?
Million.
So just throw a figure out.
Million.
Now I want to figure that. It's millions abstract. That could be from 1 million up to 999. That's 200 million is more than that. It's more than 1 billion. Pardon? Pardon? More than 1.5.
1 trillion.
8 billion. 8 billion pounds. That's your tax money. And it's being spent on that. Listen, pay attention. What about all the violence that takes place because of alcohol abuse? What about all the money that the police have to spend based on alcohol abuse? Dealing with those. What about a person who actually gets incarcerated because of alcohol abuse? Do you know how much it costs to keep one person in jail for 1 year? I studied law in university, by the way. So I kind of know these things. Huh?
500k?
£30,000 a year to keep one person behind bars. I mean, we're going to have another discussion about taking that money and actually investing it into reforming that person. Don't put him in jail. Find some kind of a reformation system. Spend the money on him in another way instead of keeping him in a box where he's going to come back out. Find probably more links and then come and carry on doing the same thing he was doing when he goes out. And I do this on a day-to-day basis. I work with these kids going in and out of jail. I see this transpiring in front of my very own eyes. The jail system, the prison system, it's not a system that's very effective in reformation. But we're digressing, we're going off topic. The point is, £30,000. So that's more than 8 billion now. That's just the NHS. What about the amount you spent on the police and the amount you spent in the jail system, the prison system? That's all because of alcohol abuse. That's why Islam says alcohol is haram. Alcohol is not allowed. But liberalism says no. The individual is the key. The individual is the main person. The individual is the one, what he wants, he gets. He gets to say what he wants. He gets to do what he wants. He is the one at the top of it. That, actually, what it is making the individual the God himself. He runs and governs his own life. He is the Lord. He does whatever he wants to do, even though he didn't create himself. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَفَرَأَيْتَ, have you not seen, مَنِ اتَّخَذَ, the one who took إِلَهَهُ, his God, how his own desires became his God. He worshipped himself. Because to worship Allah means that you obey him. You do what he tells you to do. But he doesn't want to obey Allah. He wants to obey his own desires. He'll sleep with whatever girl he sleeps with. Get her pregnant. Now she's a single mum. He doesn't want to be there to even support her. In most cases, these men, they don't stand around, they don't support. I know because I'm dealing with single parent household on a day-to-day basis. I deal with this. It's all well and good and talk about, liberal rights and blah, blah, blah. Bro, I deal with the consequences of this every day. Shall I tell you what a house looks like where there's a single parent that's raising a house, whether it be a single mom or a single dad? That parent has to work a double shift to be able to make ends meet. Because the economy, the way that it is, one person just running the house, it doesn't really work for them, right? So now that one parent is working double shifts. Now, that parent doesn't have time to raise a child because that parent is outside making that money. So who raised the child? By the way, he can't afford a nice house. He's just about making it in a council estate or a place where there's underprivileged people that have been raised in that area. Well, that area, there's cracked needles on the floor. There's broken glass on the windows. The local guy is a pimp. The guy on your right is a drug dealer. Okay? They raise you because your mom and dad are not around. They're the ones. And drug dealers do this. They come onto the block. They say, okay, cool, there's a young guy. They see it as it's their own community. They'll buy him shoes. They'll buy him this. They'll buy him that. He will now grow up to be like them. And then he'll go and maybe impregnate some other women and then abandon them just the way his dad maybe abandoned him. Not in all cases, but I'm saying this is the cycle that we see. And then that cycle carries on. And then from that, we see so much problem, fitan and fasad. So the Islam came in and said, listen, put the individual to the side. Society is our concern. And that's why when you look at anything that Islam said this is not allowed, this is allowed, it was because of one of 5 reasons. It was to protect society. Number 1, anything that corrupts your religion, Islam said is not allowed. Anything that could be a threat to your life, Islam said is not allowed. Anything that could be a threat to your wealth, Islam said is not allowed. Anything that could be a threat to your wealth, did I say wealth? To your religion, your life, your wealth, your sanity. That's why drugs are not allowed, because they destroy your sanity. And 5th and finally, anything that is a threat to your honor. to your self-respect as a human being. That's why Islam has rules of modesty and this, that, and you can't free mix and haram relationships and zina and all these kind of things, because it destroys a person's honor, a person's lineage. Does that make sense? So that's the rationale and reasoning behind things being haram. Again, I'm going off on a tangent. The point that I wanted to make was, we live in a day and age where we worship ourselves. We live in an individualistic, liberalistic society. Not all things in liberalism do we necessarily disagree with. I'm saying some things from liberalism were actually inspired by Islam, like the presumption of innocence. That was actually, it came from Islam. But the actual core essence and tenets of liberalism, it makes you your own God. And it takes you away from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even some Muslims, they struggle with this. They disobey Allah. You have to ask yourself, what's going on here, man? What's going on? You're not able to fully submit to Him, because you're still trapped to the shackles and the desires of your own soul. That's why Imam Ibn Qayyim, he put very eloquently, he said, حَرَبٌ مِّن رِقِّ الَّذِي خُلِقُوا لَهُ فَبُرُوا بِرِقِّ النَّفْسِ وَالشَّيْطَانِ. He said that you escaped from the shackles, you escaped from the slavery of Allah. He enslaved you. We're all slaves of Allah, right? You escape from His slavery only to become shackled and become a slave of the devil, Satan. And that's how it ends. So with that, subhanaka rabbi hamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Brothers and sisters, I need your attention for just 1 minute. Our brothers around the world, they need help. Some of them, if they don't get food and water to drink, they are going to die. And then there's others, like those who are back home, who live on the same streets as us. And if they don't get help in terms of spiritual help, they might lose their faith. Now, both those whose lives are in danger and whose faith are in danger, they both need to be helped. But I want to explain to you the repercussions of not helping both of them. You see, if you don't help those who are suffering when it comes to starvation, at least when they will die Muslims. And all that they will leave, or all that they will lose at the end, is their life of this world. But if you don't help those brothers and sisters who are struggling in terms of their faith, if they die, then they might actually lose their afterlife and potentially be entered into the hellfire for a period of time, if not eternity. For that reason, it's important that we don't neglect these brothers. For that reason, we started up a project called Umrah with the Mandem, where we take brothers and sisters from around the world, specifically the UK, specifically London, and we take them with us. And we set up a program that facilitates for them to change. We also provide them support for when they return. And we always select a handful of brothers who can't afford it themselves. And this time, we have taken on board more people without paying anything than we ever have before. And we are in urgent need of their costs being covered. So if you would like to help facilitate towards someone's life changing, then please go to the link below, inshallah ta'ala, and donate generously. Remember, if they change their life, then you're actually helping them, inshallah ta'ala, be a part of saving their afterlife. And in terms of reward, then any good that they do from this point onwards, if they change because of your donation and you're sincere, then you're going to get all that reward as well. So on the Day of Judgment, you get this mountain of good deeds, prayers, charity, fasts, all this stuff that you've never done. But why did it come your way? Because you facilitated with Allah's permission for someone to make change. And then when He changed, he or she did all of these things. And now that reward is all on your scales on a Day of Judgment. So please, brothers and sisters, be as generous as you can. Go to the link below, donate like crazy. Barakallahu feek. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.